My wife and mother-in-law often conversed in their native language, which made me curious. I decided to record their conversations and had them translated, only to discover a startling truth that altered everything. My wife and I were married 2 months ago, coming from different cultural backgrounds. In her culture, living with parents after marriage is the norm. We had discussed the possibility of moving in with her parents, but I was not particularly comfortable with this idea. Having grown up in America, I was accustomed to independence. My parents had moved here in their 20s to chase their dreams, and when I reached 19, I chose to move out with their support. I expressed my discomfort with living with in-laws, mentioning that I respected our cultural differences but valued our privacy more. I had also visited her apartment and felt it was too small for all of us. I initially believed she lived alone with her parents, as she had given me that impression. We compromised, and she suggested trying it for a few months. If it didn't work out, we could move out. I agreed. Our wedding was small but beautiful, and I moved into her apartment where her family welcomed me warmly. Everything felt fine until I noticed her and her mother frequently speaking in their language. I wanted to learn, but she would dismiss my requests, saying it wasn't necessary. Despite taking some online classes, I only picked up a few words and phrases. About a month and a half into our marriage, I caught on to some unsettling behavior. Her mother kept urging her to get it done, a phrase that I could translate, but my wife would just smile awkwardly when I inquired further. As time passed, her mother seemed increasingly anxious, and I became frustrated because we hadn't even gone on our honeymoon yet. I expressed a desire to travel abroad, but she refused, claiming her work occupied her time. One day at work, I spoke with a coworker from the same country as my wife. I asked if she spoke their native language, and she confirmed. I asked for her help with translations, even though I knew it was a breach of trust. I had been living with my wife's family for nearly 2 months and disliked being excluded from discussions. I couldn't shake the feeling something was off, so I decided to find out the truth. To my disbelief, my coworker listened to the recordings I had secretly made and began translating. Each word confirmed my worst fears. These were no ordinary conversations. My wife and mother-in-law were plotting to use me as a means to resolve their financial troubles. I learned that my mother-in-law was deep in debt, and my wife, under cultural pressure, had chosen to marry me as a solution. They viewed me as a naive American who would do anything for love. The recordings revealed even more. It turned out my mother-in-law was ill and needed costly treatment. I felt completely betrayed. I had genuinely fallen for my wife and trusted her fully. Anger flared within me, and while I wanted to confront her right away, I decided to stay calm and devise my next move. In the following days, I acted as if nothing had changed, pretending to be happy while planning my retaliation. My wife seemed pleased with my behavior, unaware that I was privy to their secrets. I began transferring money from our joint account back to my personal account under the guise of investments. I accumulated more evidence, recordings, photographs, and documents, which revealed her dealings with a lawyer for a potential escape plan. Eventually, I confronted her one evening. I calmly laid out our situation, exposing her and her mother's plan. I played the recordings, showing her the betrayal behind her words. She denied everything, but I had undeniable proof. I informed her that I was in touch with a lawyer and prepared to take legal action to protect my assets and ensure they received nothing. Despite her pleas for forgiveness, claiming desperation drove her actions, I was no longer listening. Distrust had tainted our relationship, and I was resolute about taking back control. I moved into a hotel and began the divorce proceedings, severing all ties with her and exposing the truth to friends and family. Though it was a challenging period, I found relief in leaving a toxic relationship. Years later, I view this experience as a crucial lesson in trusting my instincts and valuing the truth. Ultimately, I learned that while betrayal hurts, there is always a path to recovery. Today, I've found someone who genuinely loves and respects me, and I'm thankful for the strength it took to move on. Looking back, I know revenge felt sweet, but finding peace and happiness was the true victory. She sat across from me, sobbing and trying to convince me it was all a misunderstanding, but I felt only disdain. I told her firmly that she had betrayed me, and I would not forget. The next morning, I made the necessary calls to finalize the divorce, taking steps to block any further access to our joint account while transferring my assets for protection. While I maintained an outward appearance of normalcy, I secretly collected evidence, intending to expose her deceit. Eventually, I revealed the divorce papers to her. She pleaded with fake tears and desperation, but I interrupted and pressed play on the recordings, watching her panic unfold. I told her everything was finished and she had until the end of the week to vacate the apartment that was now solely in my name. I packed my belongings and left for a hotel, blocking her number and deciding to start anew. As I finalized the divorce, I shared the recordings anonymously online, ensuring her deceit was exposed. The fallout was swift. Friends and relatives distanced themselves, and her mother was forced to sell possessions to pay off debts. My ex-wife struggled to rebuild her life, but the trust had irrevocably eroded. Meanwhile, I embraced a fresh start, moving to a new city and finding peace. I realized that true revenge lay in reclaiming my life, watching them suffer from their own choices. In the end, they tried to bring me down, but I emerged stronger than ever.